housekeeping. Right around the corner, we have the restrooms and of course the exit right behind you. If you have not already signed in, please scan that QR code at this time. And while your phones are out, please follow us on our social media platforms so you can stay connected and be notified of our future events. Today, we have the privilege of celebrating something truly meaningful, the power of storytelling. I am Master Sergeant Gendro, just finishing up my 29-year career in the Massachusetts Air National Guard at the 102nd Intelligence Wing, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for today's Town Hall. Every veteran carries a story. Their stories are shaped by courage, sacrifice, resilience, and unwavering dedication to our country. When veterans share these experiences with the community, they give us a rare and valuable window into their world. We are not here simply to listen, we are here to understand. This town hall is meant to be a space where veterans can speak openly, knowing their stories will be heard with respect. These are not just personal memories. They are part of our shared national history. A history that deserves to be honored, preserved, and passed on. By sharing these stories, veterans help bridge generations. They remind us of sacrifices made and lessons learned. This space also allows veterans to find connection, comfort, and support within the community. With this said, I encourage everyone here to approach today with open hearts and open minds. Together, we can ensure that these voices continue to resonate and inspire. To all the veterans here today, thank you. Thank you for your service and thank you for your stories. We will begin today's town hall with a 10-minute video.
This video does contain loud explosions, loud noises, and may be disturbing. So if you would like to leave the room before we start the video, we will give you a few moments to do so at this time.
Roger, good copy. I'll remain on Able Creek until I move into Saddle, Michigan, into Roger, Romeo. Roger, Romeo, Michigan. Hey, Roger, detect, pass me location.
Actually, I can't even sleep, honestly. I've been on about 4 or 5 different types of sleeping pills and none of them help. That's how bad the nightmares are. I prefer not to sleep and not dream about it than sleep and just see the picture in my head is pretty bad.
Oh, Jason came right by here. South. Hey. Oh, there's fire coming. They're shooting. Over there. Where? Tell me. Get him. Get off.
That support fire from the base right down there.
Hey, where do they shoot from down there?
Hi, my name's Sebastian Younger. I'm an author and journalist, documentary filmmaker. I've covered wars all over the world. My last combat assignment was at a remote American outpost called Restrepo.
Cops taking indirect.
They're gathering intel right now basically on how to deal with us, because there's no really research or intel on how to treat us right now, because they haven't had to deal with people like us since, World War II and Vietnam, dealing with guys that are coming back from 15-month deployments with as much fighting, as we went through.
As hard as it was out there, a lot of them missed it, and they had tremendous difficulty readjusting to life back home. That's because out there they had something many Americans lack: community. As one soldier said, there's guys in the platoon who straight up hate each other, but we'd all die for each other.
Feels like longer than forever, yeah. My home is now a distant land. If I had one wish, I wish I could be back on that rock. Blue sky and tropical breeze.
I'd rather be there than here. I'd go back right now if I could.
How can we help veterans transition? How can we help veterans reincorporate themselves back into the society, back into the nation that they fought so hard for? For most of human history, trauma was experienced in groups and also recovered from in groups. That's the human norm. And we are adapted to deal with trauma in that way. And I looked at some of the ceremonies that tribal societies have used to bring warriors back from the battlefield, back from combat. And I looked at a ceremony called the gourd dance that was used by the Kiowa and other native societies of the southern Great Plains. And the gourd dance basically takes returning warriors and gives them a chance to sing, to dance, to speak to their community, to explain what they did for their people to defend them. That ceremony was resurrected in the wake of Vietnam to help Kiowa warriors, Native American Vietnam vets, incorporate and heal veterans back into society. So how do you do this in a modern nation of almost 400 million people? We're not the Kiowa. The idea that I came up with is called Vets Town Hall. People have been fighting and defending their communities since the dawn of time. Most people consider it an honor to be called to serve in that way, but it has costs. It has human costs because war is the worst thing, and it takes a terrible toll on everyone that it touches. Veterans from any war who served in any capacity have the right to stand up and speak for 10 minutes to their community at their town hall about what it felt like to fight for this country.
This poppy that I wear was from an event that I went to at the Akwesasne Mohawk Reservation in upstate New York. This, what we're doing here, they do regularly in their longhouse. I was one of the few people that was outside their tribe that they let in the longhouse to do a veterans benefit. How that day went, it started at 7 o'clock in the morning. It ended at 7:30 at night. There were 300 Mohawk warriors that started with us at 07. There were 300 Mohawk warriors that finished with us at 19:30 that evening.
The war is complicated. It does not fit into neat political categories.
In 2001, I had the wonderful pleasure to return to Vietnam and to spend the summer there at the University of Hue. And at one point, one of the students put her hand up and said to the Vietnamese hosts, "What does it feel like for you to have him sitting across the table from you?" And one of them came forward and said, "Well, first, we're very happy that he came back. The war was a long time ago. It is not that we forget, but we have to move on." And the sequel here, if you will, one of them stood and spoke to the group and said, "What did bring you back?" There had been a story that had been on my mind for the better part of half a century, 25 years at that point, now over 50 years. And it was an incident that happened in the Quai Son Valley when we were out on a tank infantry patrol. But I could make out what I thought was a pith helmet. I started to rise and I thought I could see a red star. And I was sitting on top of a 52-ton tank, M48A3, with a 50 caliber machine gun pointing at him. And I could see what looked like an AK-47 rifle that he was armed with. This happened very quickly, but I didn't fire. And I don't know why. And neither did he. And so what I said to my Vietnamese host was, if I could have any wish, that wish would be to meet that man and to thank him for my life. I said, what I would really like to do is stand in front of him and give him a salute. One of them got up, came around the table, stood at attention in front of me, and took that salute.
So I'd like to tell one particular person's story. First Lieutenant Rosalind Schultz. We were both female intelligence lieutenants, trained at the same base in Texas. We were the same age, both single, no kids, on the same road on the same day in Afghanistan. And I remember as we were leaving Bagram, the guy at the gate said to the driver, there had been a big explosion, and we should just be careful, aware of that on our drive. And that was the attack that killed Lieutenant Schultz. Her truck hit a roadside bomb, and she died in the medevac helicopter. And I was just haunted by the horror of how she died and the pain of what she experienced.
There are no Republicans or Democrats at a Vets Town Hall. There are no religious people or atheists. There are just Americans. There are just human beings. The experience of being reminded of that is a profound one that itself helps veterans heal from the wounds of war.
It was the policy in our battalion that anything that came in, we would fire right back once we knew where it was from. I didn't take my mind to other questions about where those rounds were landing until I changed jobs. I got to see that what was happening was folks would fire the weapons from playgrounds. They were doing this from schools. They were doing this from marketplaces, you name it. They were doing it in places where the design was to turn the people against us. I mean, they would fire whatever from a place that was highly populated where they knew we would kill a lot of people when we responded. It didn't really hit me until we'd gotten home and I was in Fort Benning. I'd already moved from my unit, maybe sometime 2006, and I was at a park, and there was a playground there, and there was some kids playing, and I just lost it. Like I couldn't hold it in. I just started crying and crying and crying.
My hope is that one day there will be thousands or tens of thousands of Vets Town Hall events all across the country. That will help give veterans a sense of purpose, a sense of understanding of their role in our society, but it will also maybe serve to reunite this country in a common purpose with a common goal.
For today's event to be meaningful and respectful, I want to outline a few expectations. Several veterans have already indicated they would like to speak. I will introduce each one by name, branch of service, occupation, and years served. After those speakers, and time permitting, we will open the floor for other veterans who wish to share. Each veteran will have up to 10 minutes to speak about what their service means to them. There is no requirement to fill the 10 minutes, however, I do ask that the time is not exceeded. There will be somebody showing a timer in the back, and it will provide a reminder at the 5, 8, and 10-minute mark to keep you on track. I also ask that you speak from your own experiences, your story, your reflections, your insights. This is what this space is for. For our non-veteran attendees, your role is essential. Listening without judgment, interruption, or commentary is one of the most powerful acts of support you can offer. You may hear something you disagree with or something that sparks a question, but I ask that you refrain from speaking while a story is being told. If a veteran chooses to continue a conversation afterwards, that is entirely up to them. The purpose of this town hall is simple: to give veterans the space to speak. I would like to now introduce our first veteran speaker, Matt Bean. Served 4 years in the Marine Corps as a motor transport combat logistics regiment and also served in Iraq.
Well, it's nice to see everybody here. This is a great event. I'm very excited to be here. I'm just going to go over a little bit of what I did and where I served, and I got some bullet points here to go off of, so hopefully keep me on track. Like most military, kind of get up there and start winging it and see what comes out of it. We'll start with why I joined. When I was 17, didn't really have a whole lot going on in high school. Kind of a funny story. I was hanging with my friend one night and he's like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, nothing. So he said, you want to join the Marines with me? I was like, oh, what's that? He's like, oh, it's kind of like the Army. I was like, sure. So we went to the recruiter, we signed up. I was 17 at the time. I had to call my mom to come sign some paperwork. Had no idea what I was getting into. Pretty athletic kid when I was younger. I played a lot of football, I played hockey, I did track, I did a little bit of everything, so I figured it would be a good fit for me. So I decided to join the Marines and went off to boot camp, watched obviously Full Metal Jacket before I went to kind of see what I was getting into. And it was pretty close, at least the boot camp scenes. So it was quite the experience, especially going through boot camp. It was extremely hard. There was days that you didn't think you were going to make it through it. You're like, what did I get myself into? But then there was also days when you overcome some extremely hard stuff. You're like, what do you mean we got to march? I think it was the Crucible, 34 miles in 2 days or 3 days, and do all kinds of obstacle courses the whole time you're doing it and doing all this stuff. And you're like, how am I going to do this? And you get through it and you just feel like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And while you're on the Crucible, you go through and you see different parts of the bases and stuff like that, like a lot of the base that's not used anymore. And one of the ones that hit me the hardest was the old Air Force hangar they had there, and the air pad where they took the planes off and stuff like that. And they sat there and told us, back in Vietnam, they cut boot camp short because they had to get more troops over to Vietnam, and they didn't get to finish their full 3 months of boot camp. So they used to load them right on a plane from right there. They would fly them right over to Vietnam from there, and then it realized, they didn't even get to say bye to their family after they finished their boot camp and go off to Vietnam. And I realized what kind of an elite group we were in. I'm like, wow, that people that join this are giving their life for this. Like, there's no turning back. You're in it. So that was kind of like my start of the Marine Corps. I went through my boot camp, went to MCT, went to MOS school, got into the fleet, and I thought I was gonna have some time to learn what it was to be a Marine and kind of do some training and stuff like that. And they basically told me, hey, we're leaving for Iraq in 3 months. I was like, well, here we go, this is the start of it. So we deployed to Iraq. My first deployment was in Khartoum, which is the main air base. At the beginning of the war, that was the first air base they took over, so they'd have air support, so they'd be able to bring stuff in and out. And we were in direct support of Fallujah, so we just brought supplies back and forth to Fallujah. We had some briefing. It was early in the war. It was 2004 when my first deployment was. So they kind of told us about IEDs and stuff. We didn't really know what they were and how they were getting built and stuff like that. And there really wasn't a lot of information on it because there wasn't like a special bomb. They were just using anything. They were using propane tanks and just random stuff that they had laying around. So that was my first experience in Iraq. A lot of driving back and forth. Found a lot of IEDs. We detonated a lot of IEDs. And I was still young at the time, and I look back and stuff like that, and you wonder how they can send kids at that age and stuff like that. And people always ask me, would you do it again? I said, if I was that age again, I would do it. I couldn't do it again at this age. As you get older, you realize how much you sacrifice and how much you're leaving at home and stuff like that, what you do to your family and everything like that. So that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't understand as when you're younger and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to go off the wall when you're 17, you don't have wives and kids and stuff like that back home. Obviously, some people stay in and keep on doing it. It's amazing that they do that. My second tour was in Al Qaim, which was one of the biggest bases out there. I got there and I was like, oh, this is a nice place compared to where we were in Takata. We were just in tents. I think it was like 60 guys to one tent. Everybody had probably maybe 4 feet by 6 feet area to live in for the whole deployment, which was 7 months. So we got there, we actually were in buildings and stuff. I was like, oh, this is really nice. I was all excited about it. And they're like, oh, well, we need you out in some fobs. So of course I get into it And I go out and start staying in FOBs, and we were just staying in like makeshift tents. We were staying in our trucks. We were just living wherever we had. We were lucky to have a lot of support from different companies and stuff like that. We were there for Haditha, when they took over the city, Haditha Iron Curtain, they called it. We were living in our trucks and stuff like that. We had helicopters that stayed right over us and kept everybody back from us. So that was just a completely different experience from my first one. When the first one was intense, we did one job running supplies back and forth. That one was kind of moving around all over the place. I think that was the one I did the election ballots too. So when they had their elections, we went around and we brought the ballots everywhere. And that was a little nerve-wracking because we got a lot of incoming and stuff like that, and a lot of things, they weren't happy about it. So obviously the insurgents and stuff didn't want the country to have a election system and stuff like that. So that was a big experience. The next time I was actually stationed to Fallujah, and we did support out of Fallujah from all over the place. That deployment, they were running low on full active services that they had enough people to send back again. So my third deployment, we ended up getting attached to a reservist unit. We had probably 2 or 3 full active duty with a whole platoon of reservists, and to help them get used to what's going on over there, kind of have somebody with some experience. A lot of us had 2 deployments under our belt already, so we went out to help them and teach them what was going on and how to spot IEDs and what to do when incoming was coming in and stuff like that. So that was basically my 3 deployments. Obviously, there was a lot more to them than that. I could go into, I only have 10 minutes, so could go into it a lot more. Some of the things, the challenges, like people always ask you, like, oh, how did you stay in touch with family and stuff? That was the first one. We had call-in cards. We used to go to the payphone. We'd call back to the United States to a central call-in station. They would connect you and send you back to whoever you were calling through the operator. My other deployments, obviously, we were on big bases and stuff like that. So luckily, we had a corpsman with us that let us use our sat phone, which was, especially for my third deployment, that was a huge one because for my third deployment, my wife was pregnant. So missed the whole pregnancy, and that was the one that was kind of out a lot, and I didn't really get to use phones. So the sacrifices that the family makes and stuff like that, where you just leave for 7 months and they hear from you 4 or 5 times the whole deployment when she's pregnant and going through everything. And luckily, she had my family to support her and stuff. So the families, they go through a lot too. Everybody thinks it's just the military, but the families make a sacrifice too, because like I said, a lot of the family, they can easily get up and walk away if they wanted to, but they stick through it. They stay through it through the hard times. Same thing with like my immediate family, my brothers and sisters and my mother and stuff like that, not really getting to talk to them. I only get 1 phone call. I get to call my wife, and I don't get to talk to my family and stuff like that. So that was really hard. It was one of those things that you gotta just deal with. Some of the hardest parts through the deployments and stuff like that, it just, the Iraq war, it was such a different war from a lot of other wars. You watch World War II, you watch Vietnam and stuff like that, and they were going there like, all right, this is where our battle's gonna be. We're gonna go there, we're gonna meet people. Vietnam was a little bit different, but at least like World War II, you kind of knew where your battles were gonna be. There was still stuff like that. But Iraq, it's a nice calm night, you're driving through the city and you're just looking at the stars and there's people waving at you, and then all of a sudden something blows up and people start shooting at you, and it's not, a lot of times you're not prepared for it. Then there's other times that they tell you, hey, this is gonna be a bad night, there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on, and then nothing ends up happening. So it's just kind of one of those nerve-wracking things where you never know what's gonna happen. Like you just, every night you go out, you have no idea if it's gonna be a bad night, it's gonna be a good night. They can give you as much intel as they can, but you have no idea. There's nights where we were on base just hanging out, and all of a sudden rockets come in and start blowing up the roadway and stuff, and that's supposed to be our safe place where we can hang out, and even there it wasn't. So you're on edge 24/7. The first deployment, they didn't even know if they had chemical warfare still, so we had to carry our gas masks with us at all times and stuff like that. That kind of leads me into what it's like being in the civilian life now and stuff like that. You talk about these stories with civilians, and you know so many people that you deployed with and you served with and stuff like that, so you think this is kind of like a common thing where people understand what you went through and stuff like that. And when I couldn't imagine people shooting at you, you start realizing how much of the population hasn't been shot at and how it hasn't been blown up or hasn't seen bombs go off. And It really humbles you, and I try to stay as humble as possible because I know how much it was like for World War II veterans, Vietnam veterans, and stuff like that. They had really tough wars, and I try to stay humble, but it makes me realize too, like every military experience is something unique and it's something different. So there's not any military that went through more than another or less than another. Even guys that didn't deploy and stuff, it's still a sacrifice where you go out there and there's people that you serve with that went over to Iraq and died, and people that you knew, and so it's an experience that an extremely small percent of the population get to experience and go through, and for us to be able to tell our stories and kind of give them a little insight of what it went through, because you can watch movies and stuff like that, but when you physically know somebody that went through it and you physically talk to them and you understand, this is real. This isn't a movie. This wasn't written on a piece of paper. This is somebody that actually did it. It's great that they do stuff like this and people get to experience people's real life experiences and stuff like that, because there can be a million movies made about everybody's experience, but you get to see one experience. But when you get to meet somebody that actually did it, it's amazing. And I appreciate the time to come up here and talk to you guys. I'm gonna stay. If anybody has questions and stuff afterwards, feel free to let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next up, we have Lewis Walton, a 35-year Army veteran who served as a military police at the 115th MP Company, 118th MP Battalion, and also served in Iraq and Bosnia.
Good morning. My story's a little bit different. I'm going to give you the view, what it was like for me growing up as a Gold Star MIA family member. So first, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, fellow veterans, and honored families, thank you for the opportunity to stand before you today. I'm here to share a story of sacrifice, service, and the enduring legacy of what it means to be part of a Gold Star MIA family, forged during the turbulent era of the Vietnam War, and what it means to continue that legacy through my 35 years of service. To be a Gold Star MIA family is to live with both pride and pain, woven together. My childhood was marked by the Vietnam War, a conflict that shaped the lives of millions and forever changed the course of American history. I was very young when my family received the news. My father, brave, compassionate, deeply committed to his country, would not be coming home. The Gold Star MIA flag pinned to our window became a daily reminder of his sacrifice and the weight my family carried. The Vietnam era was difficult for all Americans, but for Gold Star families, we bore a special burden. It's a club no kid wanted to be a member of. We lived in communities sometimes divided over the war, and the grief we experienced was often mingled with misunderstanding and silence. The loss was not just personal, it was national. Yet through it all, we found resilience in each other. We leaned on our neighbors, our fellow families, and the small moments and kindness that help us persevere. I remember my mother's quiet strength, her unwavering dedication to keeping our family together, and her efforts to ensure my sister and I understood the meaning behind the Gold Star. She taught us that our father's sacrifice was not just about loss, it was about love. Love for country, love for family, and love for the ideals he believed worth defending. Growing up, I learned that sacrifice is not merely giving something up, but investing in something greater than oneself. The Vietnam War and its aftermath taught us to value unity and empathy, to support others facing hardship, and to honor those whose lives were shaped or lost in service. My father's legacy inspired me to ask, how can I carry that torch forward? How can I turn grief into purpose? The pain of loss became a source of strength. It shaped my character, drove me to succeed somewhat in school, and instilled in me a sense of responsibility to my community and country. I understood early that service was not a duty, it was a calling. When I became age 19, I made the decision to join the military. It was not just a career choice, it was an answer to the call that had echoed in my family for years. I grew up in a very military family. Every one of my uncles and my cousins were in. For me, it was kind of just waiting to get to the right age to where I could join. The Gold Star was always with me as a reminder that service is both a privilege and a sacrifice. As I stood in uniform for the first time, I remembered my father and the countless men and women who, like him, gave their all. I was determined to honor their memory, to serve with integrity, and build a legacy of my own, one grounded in the values I learned as a Gold Star MIA family. Like I said, I had joined at 19. I had 5 deployments. The gentleman that spoke first, I think we were in Iraq around the same time. I was there in 2003 for 18 months, and then we went back again in 2006, where we were in charge of all the prisons in Iraq, as well as Saddam. We babysat him and had him back and forth to prison. Just as a quick funny note, during 2006, for the unit, I was an AGR soldier, which is a full-time Guard member. One of my responsibilities was in charge of the food money. And what that is you're able to go into town and purchase goods off the economy. Well, at the time, Saddam was going to trial and he didn't have a suit. So if you've ever seen his execution video, the suit he's wearing is the one I had to buy. And we actually tried it on and took pictures first, obviously, right? That's what Joes do. But anyway, I digress. 35 years is a lifetime in itself. Over those decades, I have worn many hats: soldier, leader, mentor, friend. I have served in times of peace and conflict and witnessed the evolution of our military, the strengthening of our bonds, and the resilience of our nation. Military service has given me so much: discipline, camaraderie, and perspective. It has challenged me to grow, to make difficult decisions, and support those under my command. There were moments of triumph and moments of hardship. I lost friends, gained family, and found purpose every day. Yet the greatest lesson from my service is that military is just not about defense. It's about commitment to principles, people, and a shared vision for a better future. My time in uniform has always been colored by the memory of my father and by the Gold Star that marked my family's journey. As I reflect on both the past and the present, I'm reminded that service is not limited to those in uniform. It extends to families, communities, and all who support our nation's ideals. Gold Star families represent the ultimate sacrifice, but their strength and resilience inspire us all to serve in whatever way we can. I'm proud to be a part of a lineage that values service above self. My family's story is not unique. It is shared by thousands who have lost loved ones and continue to give back. We honor their sacrifice by living lives worthy of their legacy. In closing, I want to thank you for allowing me to share my story. The Gold Star in our window is not just a symbol of grief, it's a beacon of hope, courage, commitment. It stands for all who have served, all who have sacrificed, and all who continue to build a future grounded in unity and compassion. May we never forget the lessons learned from the past, and may we always honor those who gave everything to our freedom. As I look back on my childhood, my family, and my 35 years in the military, I am deeply grateful for the opportunities, the challenges, and the unwavering sense of duty that has guided me. Thank you, and may we all continue to serve in ways that honor those who came before us.
Thank you, Louis. Next up, we have Justin Thurber, who served 29 years in the United States Air Force as a Chief of Maintenance, 439th Maintenance Squadron, and also served Desert Storm and Desert Shield. He's also a Bristol alum.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Denny. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the veterans organization for putting this on. I was asked to do this, didn't know much about it, didn't think I really wanted to do something like this. Actually, I got ideas on what to talk about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago. But when I was asked, I think I was hesitant at first, and I think that's something a lot of veterans is hesitant, to look back on their career and, discuss a lot of the things that happened. And that is the reason why I decided to do this. When I was a chief in the military, one of the problems that we had was a chief of maintenance is the tempo, and I'm sure like a lot of other branches, the tempo is you do a job, you're on to the next one. You don't have a lot of time to sit there and pat yourself on the back, think about how great you're doing. It's I have a job, I did it, it's on to the next one. And when you start talking to your people and you're saying like, hey, you're doing a great job, well, here's the other thing they tell you in the military, don't tell people they're doing a good job too much because then it becomes fake. The term they used in the Air Force was it becomes plastic. So you always had to be careful not to praise your people too much. I mean, we're doing some really great things. We're doing more with less all the time, constantly being asked to adapt and overcome, and we always get the mission done. But if you tell that to people all the time, like, hey, you're doing a great job, after a while, you're just a leader that just says that and it becomes meaningless. So trying to find ways to let these people know that their service mattered. I love the opportunity to present chief coins, for exceptional work to my airmen. And one thing I did too, instead of just presenting it like most people did, I would tell my airmen, before I give this to you, I want you to tell me one awesome thing you've done in the Air Force. I kid you not, 100% of the time, it was nothing. That's what they said, I've done nothing. And I said, well, that's bullcrap, because everyone says that. And then secondly, everyone's done something cool. And then you always see like some people, I did this, I did that. And they said, no, I want it from this person. So then what they would do is they said, well, I was able to go and do this when I was overseas in Iraq, or I was able to jump out with the Golden Knights, or all these cool things. And I used to sit there and every single time go, you suck. Like, here's a chief telling their people they suck, but I'm like, no, that's awesome. Like, I wish I could have done that. Right? My little story is before the war started, everyone told me not to volunteer anytime in the military, and I wasn't a good listener sometimes. And when they started sending people off my base, I volunteered to be on the first plane off the base. So in 2001, Thanksgiving Day, I just finished a 12-hour shift at Marone Air Base, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to go back to bed. My family's at home. I got nothing to do. They said, we're doing a refueling mission. Do you want to go on it? I'm like, yeah, cool. I've never been on a refueling plane. It'd be cool to look down and see all that happen. And I still have the video. But we flew from Spain over to Ireland to refuel Donald Rumsfeld's plane as he was getting ready to go get diplomatic clearances to start the war. Right? There are things, and that's what I used to tell my guys. I said, listen, the military, there's going to be long stretches. There's going to be days and days of just boringness, and you feel like you're doing nothing. I go, but every once in a while, there's going to be an opportunity for you to do something that no one in this world is ever going to be able to do. And I go, we should be proud of that, and we should talk about that. I will say that the other reason why I'm here is because I had a good friend of mine who was in the Army. Then he smartened up after the war and came to the Air Force. Whoa. See, we can do this stuff, right? And then he retired recently, and he made a Facebook post where he was wondering if his service even mattered. And I understand that. I think most veterans understand that, right? Because you're around wonderful, great people all the time. I got to meet Tuskegee Airmen, World War II veterans. I got to meet Purple Heart recipients. There's a lot of people like in your service that you meet that you say, man, these people did some great things. What did I do? And if there's anything that veterans are, is we're honest, because we have to be honest. When someone's life depends on what you do, you have to be honest. You can't lie. Did you fix that correctly? Oh yeah. No. You have to be honest. We have to do it. And I think what happens is, I don't think a lot of people understand this, and it's maybe not spoken too well. I think a lot of veterans, even if they lost limbs or stuff like that, they sit there like someone gave more than I did. So one of the things I would like to say is, if you ever have the opportunity, you see a veteran that's out there, encourage them to join the Legion, encourage them to join an AMVETS, encourage them to join an organization with other veterans, because veterans understand other veterans. And it is a big club. We get to goof that, you know, Marines eat crayons, and, you know, why the Navy has their names on the back of their uniforms. And that's stuff we can do. Please don't do that. But we need that. It's something we miss when we get together and we talk about our stories. I think it's us proving to ourselves that we actually made a difference. And one last thing I'll say: when I started in the military, I had an 18th birthday in basic training. I didn't come from a wealthy family. You could say we're poor. I struggled getting to my base, and a gentleman who lived in Seacock used to say, "Hey, listen, I'll take you up if you need a ride." So we went on many rides together to the base to do my reserve weekend. And he became a chief, which later I became a chief, but he passed away before he retired, and he had a lot of plans, and that kind of hurt me. And I said, well, I'm gonna go to his funeral. I dressed up, I was representing the base, and saying, I'm sorry for your loss to this family seemed meaningless. And I had no idea what to say. And then it dawned on me, and I tell people I know what the meaning of life is. The meaning of life is to make a difference. Because when I went up there, I told his family, thank you. Thank you for allowing your dad to serve. Thank you for allowing him to make a difference. He affected my life and so many other people's lives. That is the meaning of life. When I pass away, I want nothing more than someone go up to my kid and say, you know what my dad did for me? Go, know what your dad did for me? I used to have guys at my base like, Chief, why do you do this? I said, I do this because hopefully one day if my kids need help, someone will help them. So I think two big professions in the world can know they make a difference. Teachers, which my wife was one of them, and veterans. So thank you for your service. Tell your stories and invite other veterans to these organizations because they really need that connection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Next up, we have Ryan Cherry, who served 25 years in the Marine Corps, AH-1 Cobra pilot, Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 369, and served in Iraq.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm honored to be here today to meet, to listen, and to speak to all of you. My name is Ryan Cherry. I recently retired from the Marine Corps after 25 years. I'm grateful to be here not just as a retired Marine, but as a new member of this community. And I know we were told not to speak while the speakers are going, but before I give a speech, I like to kind of get a feel for the room. So when I call your service, let me hear you. Where's the soldiers in the room? We got an Army? Okay. So the bar's going to be set pretty high there. Air Force?
Yep.
Okay. Navy? Coasties? Any Space Force? Too early for that? Okay. All of our guardsmen are reservists. And now, where are my Marines? Wow. Okay. So, who am I? I was born in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. My father was a Marine and a Vietnam veteran as well. My mother will tell you that combining my service with his, she served as a military spouse and a mother for almost 50 years, worrying and stressing about her men flying around the world in combat and training. I lived in North Kingstown, Rhode Island for a little while and grew up for most of my youth in Mansfield, Massachusetts. I went to Bishop Feian High School and Springfield College in Western Mass. I graduated from Officer Candidate School in the summer of 1999 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in May of 2000. On September 11, 2001 is the day I checked into my first training squadron in flight school, and I started my first of 4 combat deployments in 2003. I've deployed 7 times, logged almost 3,000 hours of flight time, and have been stationed with my family all around the world, in the continental United States, in Oconus, in Hawaii, and in Germany. I've had many successes, more than a few failures, and enough near-death experiences to keep my mom and my wife up at night. Speaking of my wife, Jennifer, the beautiful blonde in the back, she also happens to be a doctor and a chiropractor, so if you're looking to get your back cracked, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you. I'm a father. My son Joey is 11. He's an amazing young man. And in the first 11 years of life, he lived in 7 different places, so he truly understands the sacrifice of military service. So why did I join? The first reason is simple. I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see if I could handle it, and I wanted to serve my country. Interestingly, the first reason of being like my dad made it difficult to join. When I was in high school and I told my dad I wanted to enlist, he told me to break my legs. You see, he enlisted in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam draft and was too poor to pay for college. On active duty in the reserves, he went up to the rank of gunnery sergeant and became a chief 1 officer 4. He had seen both sides of the military on the officer enlisted side, and due to his success in the business world, he could pay for his boys to go to college. Something his parents couldn't do for him. If I was going to be a Marine, I was going to be a Marine with a college degree. So what did I do in my service? I'm an AH-1 Whiskey and AH-1 Zulu Cobra pilot in 3 different squadrons. I have every qualification and designation you can get in my aircraft, and as I said, I deployed 7 times. I commanded a squadron of Cobras and Hueys of over 450 Marines and almost $1 billion worth of aircraft. I worked in the basement of the Pentagon and the National Military Command Center, and I served as an aide-de-camp to a 3-star general in Hawaii. I served in Stuttgart, Germany for European Command. I was there for the Afghan NEO and also the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We did that all during COVID. And in my last job, I advised the Marine Corps Pacific Command on all aviation matters from Hollywood to Bollywood and penguins to polar bears. I also managed a budget over $1.2 million. So, what are the lessons I learned over those 25 years? Well, they extend far beyond the cockpit and the battlefield. Here are a few. I learned that timeliness is respect. If you're late, you're telling people their time doesn't matter. I learned that decisiveness matters. Leaders can't drift. They must process information, listen to input, make a call, and move out. I learned that if you disagree, to speak up. But once a decision is made, everybody steps off on the same foot. I learned that bad news doesn't get better with time. Surprises erode trust. Transparency builds it. And it might fix the mistake before it becomes a problem or people die. I learned that loyalty runs downward. As leaders, we fight for our people, we take care of them, we protect them, and we advocate for them. And I learned that families matter. No rank replaces being present with your family. Make time for your family when you can, because you never know. That time is never guaranteed. In November, I retired from active duty, and we were fortunate enough to move home to Massachusetts and find a new life here in Swansea. In my 25 years in uniform, that wasn't easy, and for service members and families, all transitions are difficult. For many veterans, retirement or separation can feel like stepping off of a moving ship. Your identity has been tied to your service. Your community has been tightly woven, and your mission has been clear. Then suddenly you're asked, now what? For me, that question became an opportunity. I began to ask myself, how do I take what I've learned, sometimes the hard way, and help others? Because the truth is, leadership challenges don't end when you hang up the uniform, they just change environments. So now, in this next chapter, my mission is simple. My goal is to give back, to mentor high school and college students as they try to figure out their next direction in life, to coach recent graduates stepping into responsibilities for their first time, to support new and current military members navigating leadership challenges, to work with business leaders and executives who are responsible for teams, organizations, and outcomes. And to do this, I'm going to do it through speaking, mentorship, coaching, and through my book, Read Back, which captures the leadership lessons I learned over 25 years of service. The title Read Back comes from aviation. We provide close air support to Marines on the ground. There's a mandatory read back of key information to ensure that the Fires you use from your aircraft kill the enemy without impacting or affecting any friendly forces or civilians. Read back also comes from my time as a staff officer. There are times when you're in a conversation with a general officer that the conversation will start to meander and you can be left with uncertainty of what the task really is. A read back allows everyone to walk away from the conversation with clear guidance and everybody moving in the same direction. In life and leadership, we are all receiving instructions from mentors, from experiences, from failures, and from hardship. But the question is, do we internalize them? Do we read them back? And how do we apply them? That's what I want to help people do. To the veterans here today, from Vietnam, the Gulf War, Iraq and Afghanistan, and all of the military conflicts, from peacetime services, your experiences still matter. Your discipline matters, your example matters, and your mentorship matters. Our community needs you, not just for what you did, but for what you know and what you continue to do to help others. To the few people from the younger generation who are here, whether you choose military service or another path, understand this. You do not need a uniform to live with honor. You do not need rank to lead. You don't need combat to develop courage. Leadership starts with small habits like showing up on time, telling the truth, doing the hard things, taking responsibility for your actions and the actions of those you lead, and serving others before yourself. So in closing, after 25 years in the Marine Corps, I can tell you this. Service doesn't end when you retire or get out, it evolves. I wore the uniform proudly, now I carry the lessons forward. If I can help one young leader avoid a mistake I made, if I can help one executive lead with more integrity, if I can help one veteran find renewed purpose, then the next chapter will be just as meaningful as the last one. Thank you for your service, thank you for your example, and thank you for allowing me to continue serving just in a different way. Semper Fidelis, and God bless.
Thank you, Ryan. Next, we have Dave McCarthy with 4.5 years of Marine Corps service, who is a squad leader, infantryman, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marine, and served in Vietnam.
Thank you. Justin Thurber still here? Yeah. He didn't say that he's still serving his country and still serving veterans. He's also the state representative from this area. So thank you, Justin. He also mentioned about not volunteering. I volunteered. I was in boot camp. I said, I got to get out of here. And drill instructor said, can anybody here drive a truck? I couldn't drive a truck. I said, how loud can it be? I said, yeah, me. So he said, well, you won't have any problem with this broom then. So I ended up sleeping in the barracks that day. First and last time I volunteered. I'd like to talk to you about, I'm here for 10 minutes, but I want to talk to you about 4 minutes. Every 4 minutes, a Vietnam veteran dies. We've reached the age of mortality. I think 2.7 million men and women served in Vietnam. There's like 850,000 left now. World War II veterans, they're all around 100. There's only a handful of them left. Korean War veterans are in their 90s. For the first time, Iraq, Afghanistan veterans outnumber Vietnam veterans. I say all that because our numbers are dwindling, and with the loss of numbers, we lose power. Just the other day, the head of the Veterans Administration came out with new rules that would really diminish the benefits to veterans. There's such an uproar that he's put that on hold. He hasn't rescinded it, but he put it on hold. So we don't have the numbers to have the power that we used to have, but our voices can still be heard through things like this, like these things, meetings with the public and stuff. And it's for history, sure. But it's also for us, and it's also for PR. Actually, if we can get out, tell our stories, the sympathy, when they see our dedication, our sacrifices and stuff, we will have the public behind us going forward. And going forward, what that means, I won't be here, but going forward, it means we'll get the support for these guys and gals in Afghanistan and Iraq who did so many multiple deployments and stuff. So tell your stories, it's very important. When I tell my stories, I don't pull any punches. I tell it like it is, like it was out there. I don't want to glorify war. I want people to know the carnage. Who was it, Sherman, who said, General Sherman said, it's good the war is so bad or else we grow too fond of it or something like that. The carnage of war, I think people need to know too. I tell two stories. I tell the story of Joey, who was an engineer, marine engineer, stationed on Hill 55, about 20 miles south of Da Nang. Joey was a happy-go-lucky guy who everybody, whether you were in the grunts or in the artillery or in the engineers, everyone on the hill knew Joey, always with a laugh, always with a joke. Every morning, him and his engineer team had to go out and clear the roads of bombs, booby traps. One morning he went out and with his team, and it was only like maybe 100 feet from the perimeter. They came across a bomb in the road. What they did, only one guy would defuse the bomb. The rest would spread out this supply security. And we were watching this, and we said, they got something, because they're spreading out. And the next thing we heard was the explosion. And Joey ended up as pink mist. That's all that was left of him. We all ran out without orders, a bunch of us, like 2 squads, ran out there to provide security. The guy next to me, I forget, Charlie Conrad's, found what was left of Joey. It was a boot with his foot in it. That's all that got sent home was Joey's foot. That's war, and that's what the public needs to know. I also talk about Ricky Lopez, Lance Corporal, a hard-charging Marine, good friend of mine. He was so good, in fact, many times, I was only a sergeant, but many times I ended up as the platoon commander. We went through so many second lieutenants and NCOs and just regular grunts that everybody sort of moved up, and Ricky, as a Lance Corporal, commanded a squad when I was a platoon sergeant. He was so good, such a good Marine. And one night on Hill 41, south of Da Nang, by Liberty Bridge, we were hit. And what we did at night is we never went in bunkers. Bunkers were death traps. What we did is we were all along the berms at night that the Seabees had built us on this hill, and with firing places in them. And Ricky had run in to get more ammo or grenades or something in the bunker, just as it was hit by a B-40 rocket. And the next morning, Hill 41 was unusual in that it was long and narrow. And actually, when our platoon was there, half the platoon was north, half the platoon was south. I happened to be at the south that night. He was at the north. So I never really knew what happened. The next morning, I got a call from the captain. Our other 2 platoons were on the other side of the Song Thuban River. And he said, I need you over here. I said, well, you gotta go to Da Nang. And I said, why? You have to identify Ricky's body. I said, well, that's not my job. That's usually a lieutenant or something. No, you gotta go, because you're the only one we have left who really knew him. And Ricky was lying on a slab there. I had identified what was left of him. Half his face was skeletal. All he had was blood. He still had the thick black hair he had. He was a Mexican American. He had this thick black hair. I'll never forget it. And his feet were missing. His chest was torn open. And you could see his ribs. That's war. That's what I had. I had to identify what was left of Ricky Lopez. And I think the public needs to know that it's not just, it's just not glory. It's death and it's destruction. And that's what I try to tell people. I thank everybody here, my fellow Marines, Semper Fi. Thanks everybody for their service. Thanks for the Student Veterans of America at Bristol Community College for hosting this. This is great. You got to get out there and tell your stories. We all have to get out there and tell our stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So there is some time remaining. Would any other veteran like to speak? As a reminder, we do have a 10-minute limit.
So my name is Mike. I joined the Marine Corps in 1983. And I think my story, I served basically what we categorize as Cold War. But I think my story might help connect people in this room. I happen to be sitting behind this young little gentleman right here who seems to be with his parents. And my story I'm going to start, and I promise I'll make it brief. My family would be saying keep it brief right now. My story kind of starts right there at that young gentleman's age. I grew up in a big Navy family. My uncles, 4 uncles, my grandfather were all Navy veterans, all lifers, at almost 130 years combined in the Navy. And my dad was a Navy nuclear guy that was part of the beginning of the Navy nuclear program and went to Idaho as an instructor. And my story is this: when we make choices as a young adult, teenager, or we start thinking of things when we're younger by seeing, like myself and my family, these Navy veterans, these guys were incredible, but I never ever heard a story of their challenges and what they experienced. Never, my whole life. And this was our generation then, were still like the storytellers. You went to cookouts, you went to family stuff, you went to all these things, and we were always there listening to our adults tell stories, but none of these gentlemen really told their stories, including my dad, who we found out after he passed. And my point is how brilliant this idea is right here of telling stories. And even my own dad, who I was very close with, we didn't find out till after he died that he was one of the instructors hand-selected by Rickover to go to Idaho and be an instructor at the Navy nuclear school. And still today I say, why did he never share that? And I think seeing this today, it's because there were no platforms like this. So here's the end of my story. So we served in peacetime before there were obviously cell phones and social media. And I had one Marine buddy I kept in touch with all those years, because we promised to share our parents' addresses and phone numbers and our siblings' addresses and phone numbers. And we pulled it off, but we lost track simply of the other buddies we served with in peacetime. Until Ronnie got married and his wife said, well, that's the end of that. And she tracked us all down. And we started to get together after years, and I don't think many of you men and women in this room will accept this, but we were kind of embarrassed that we were the peacetime guys. And we would get to the eventual point where we say, well, we at least raised our hand and we signed that paper, which is just as important. There is no way I could top one story that was already spoken in this room. But I can give a couple of pieces to show how, as a young person, having good, strong adults that are around us, when you raise your hand, and of course I had to join the Marine Corps versus all those Navy guys because I didn't know how else to fill those shoes. A couple of things that happened to me in my life in the military that truly changed me was, first, as this gentleman I keep using, and I hope you don't mind me using you as an example, when I was like that age, all these people are over my parents' house. It's a summer day, we're having a cookout, and I always looked at these people, as who I've already explained. And in my bedroom, the year before, which we still couldn't believe our father let us have these, we each got a little black and white TV for our room. And on that black and white TV this afternoon was 60 Minutes. And it was explaining the story of what Vietnam veterans were going through coming home. And I'm watching this as I fiddle around with whatever in my room, and I keep looking out into the hallway at these men and their wives, and at thank you, young man, that age, I really could not comprehend how these men are the same men being explained in this TV show of what they were going through. So I never really shared that with them. I never really shared it with anybody, but it was in me. So when my high school years are ending, I raised my hand. And the next piece that really changed my life was when I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, my first station. We went to what was called Team Spirit. It's this live, as most of you probably know, this live exercise we do with the South Korean Marines. And two things happened that changed my life there, or changed my whole perspective of thinking for the great platforms like this. Thank you. And I'm almost done, I promise. The first thing that happened was we're like way up in these mountains, and this is the early 80s, so like, you know, the M60 I'm carrying, it doesn't even work, and they just said, just carry it, that's all you're gonna do. So, you know, the military wasn't very well funded, but we do these exercises anyway for training. And we're way up on these mountains where you can't even see all the way down to the base, and out of the woods, which their winters are very similar to New England, very similar climate, would come these old South Korean men with 2 suitcases in their hands. And they would come out of nowhere, and they would open up these suitcases and try to sell you Pepsis and scooter pies. And they'd have like trinkets, like these, you know, watches and all this stuff. And you don't really have cash on you. And they would always say, we'll take your American cigarettes as cash. And we see this 2 or 3 times, and I would say to myself, and that's what taught me how fortunate we are in this country, even back when I was a kid in the 80s, right? Compared to the rest of the world, which really has not changed all that much in these villages, in these countries, has not even changed that much today. So it helped me connect that Vietnam story to my great uncles and grandfather and my dad and myself raising my hand. And my point is, again, thank you, young man, that I get to use you as the example, that you never know how your pieces in life are going to connect you to other people and connect you to something all these years later as something as incredible as is today. The other thing that it was, and it was again in South Korea, is I happened to be there when it was the holidays, so they gave us 4 days off. Big mistake by the military, I thought, but they gave us 4 days off for the Christmas break, and we were allowed to go out into Seoul, where they were just building the stadiums for the Olympics. So it was actually a very vibrant city at the time. But in that city was the life of the day, but then those grandfathers and uncles I talked about who were still in the historic clothings, and they would come through the city, and the whole city would stop, because this old farmer was going through with 100 goats because he had to get somewhere on the other side. So those same farmers I used to call them, I call them now, they would come up to me, and I had 2 occasions where it specifically happened to me, and this was in a 4-day window. And they would come up, and they all seemed to just like lean over a little bit, you know, and frail. And they looked like they were 90, they were probably only 60 because of the life that they led. And they would come up, and I assume some of the very little English they'd say, they would put their hand out and they would say to us, young Marines, thank your grandfather, thank your grandfather, thank your grandfather. And we would hold that hand, and because of the story I just told you, still today, for how few are left, duly noted, I never walked by a gentleman and his family with that Korean hat on and not tell that story of those people, because I promised myself I would, in the spirit of my family, your families, and I hope those little pieces help connect your stories to how just some kid that decides to put his hand up in the crowd and say, I'll do it, connects us to who we all are today. And I had no intention on speaking, and thank you very much, and Semper Fi to everybody in this room.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We have another guest speaker.
Rock steady, roll ready. My name is Richard Branco. You would think after 15 years of doing this, my voice would finally drop, but it doesn't. The gentleman before me spoke about grandfathers. And the only reason why I joined the military was because of my grandfather. My grandfather was a Korean veteran. His name was Morton Turpinning from Newport, Rhode Island. His call sign was Gorilla Milk. Mean and nasty. Had to break the cycle. Long story short, I want to use this time so I can connect with you guys. Because a lot of people think they know my story, they don't know my story. My situation was unique. As a veteran, to basically fix everything that I screwed up in the military, I was able to receive an American Hero Award from the Veterans Association of Bristol County, an organization that I volunteered for 15 years and basically pulled every single military card I had to keep it open when they were ready to close it. But when I asked to get paid, you know how it is, they showed me the door. To get back to my military, I, like a lot of Vietnam veterans, I had no choice in the matter. I was a teenager, I was a troublemaker, I loved racing cars, I was from a dysfunctional family. At the age of 17, my grandfather basically, I only met him 4 times. He showed his head and he said, "You're going into the military. Because if you don't go in the military, you're never going to have a chance at life." That's how the cards were stacked up against me. So, went to the military. I even tried to flunk out of high school to get out of my military contract. Yes. I was then told if I didn't go into the military, I was going to be homeless. Here I am. I'm still homeless, so. But joined the military when I was 18 years old, went to basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. Luckily, in the early 90s, I fell in love with the M1A1 Abrams from CNN. So I became a tanker, safest job possible, except for the armor that they now at least tell us about. Just like my grandfather, there's a good chance I have cancer. Agent Orange made him and killed him. You know, he was one of those guys. He trained Vietnam veterans. He was a Korean veteran. Go into basic training. I was already used to getting yelled at, so dealing with drill sergeants was easy. Made it through basic training, fell in love with driving the tank in Kentucky. Screwed up. I asked my drill sergeant, just off of a whim, I said, "Can I go to Germany with all my friends?" Now we know that never happens. My drill sergeant comes up to me the next day, he goes, "I don't know how you pulled it off, but you're going to Germany." Worst mistake both I made and the military ever made. Don't get me wrong, if I wasn't in Germany, I wouldn't have my 29-year-old son that lives in Northern Ireland right now, which luckily we reconnected finally through Facebook. But here I am, 18 years old, running away from child abuse, stupid E1, but also a very intelligent E1 at the same time. I made a mistake. If you want to know what the mistake is, I'll tell you off the mic. I received a counseling statement. I followed the orders that were given to me. I then had to deal with toxic leadership. After being told an issue was completely taken care of, don't worry about it, we're moving forward, it got brought up again 4 months later, and I was railroaded. I spent 4 months in Mannheim prison, which, as you guys know, I'm an E0. You know, I get the fuzzy rank. Went back to my unit. Now, don't get me wrong, if it wasn't because of the military, I wouldn't be alive right now. And that's the truth. And anybody that knows me knows that that's the truth. Went back to my unit, made deals with my chain of command to stay in the military because I didn't want to come home to the abusive parents. Did everything I could do on my end. still got sent home. All right. So now I'm 22 years old, I'm at home, got a bad conduct discharge for following orders, for being truthful, whatever. The age of 32, I run into a gentleman by the name of Paul Miranda, who he was another veteran. I tell my story to. He said, you gotta go get your stuff modified. I proceeded to go through the process of modifying the DD-214. So I technically have a DD-215. I proved my case legally. I won my case legally. I was granted clemency and a pardon, but they would never change my reenlistment code because they broke me. And they could never trust me with a tank again. They could never trust me with anything. I then proceed to take that now upgraded discharge and I go to the VA. The VA turns around, now I'm at the age of 32. The VA turns around and they said, we don't even want to deal with your case. They said, we don't even know how you served in the military. We don't even know how you passed the mental exam with everything you went through as a child. And I told him, I said, the drill sergeant told me the doctors aren't here to help me. So that's how I made it through MEPS. Long story short, I am retired, possibly retarded, but retired. I'm an E1 for life. And I try to advocate, and I try to help out the other people that don't know how to talk or they don't know what to do. So hopefully with taking this time, because I've never told this story publicly, and there's so much stuff that gets said, so much speculation. I mean, yeah, my grandfather was, and I'll say this once and only once, one of the original members of the Aquidneck Islanders. Those of you who know, you know. And I'm his firstborn grandson. So, all I can say is, like I said, the military did turn me into the person that I am, both good and bad. And if you see me in my truck, and you see the local homeless veteran that you can't figure out why his family doesn't deal with him, well, now you know why. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, absolutely. Come on up. Just introduce yourself.
Good morning. I think it's still morning. I'm Bill Nedwich. Some of you people do know me already because I'm around all over the place. I served in the military, and I'll tell you right up front, I've never served in combat. Usually I was in a unit that didn't go, or I was waiting to leave. I did 23 years in the United States Army in two different groups. As you can see, it was only an E6, because I went from E1 to E6, then took a break in service, went back in, and went from E2 to E6. And that's where it ended. A little bit about my military career. I served as a military policeman for the first 10 years of my service, where I served in Germany, United States, all over the place. I joined right at the very end of the Vietnam War. I did not go to Vietnam. I wasn't able to. I joined, matter of fact, I was at Bristol Community College at one time, and I got an A in ping pong, a B in pool, and an A+ in beer drinking, which means the reason why I joined the United States Army. Later on, I went back again, but I was married then, so I wasn't that bad. I'd served, I enjoyed it, I got out, I didn't do anything spectacular, but I continued on. I went back in, I ended up with, instead of military police, chemical corps. For 5.5 years, I served at NATO Site 59, where over 100,000 rounds of chemical weapons were stored in Germany. Back in 90, I think it was 90, Sorry, my head's a little bit screwed up from certain things, medical things. We were moving the chemical rounds out. The day the last convoy left the weapon site was the day Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait. Because I had to close the weapons site down because I was site NCOIC, I was then transferred to another unit, which was with the 3rd Infantry Division, and I sat there waiting to leave, and we never did leave. Well, during that period of time, I heroically, and it was heroically, fell off the back of a 5-ton truck and compression fractured my neck, which means I have a couple of problems here. Again, I just wanted to bring out that, I'm still serving. I served my country for 23 and a half years. I left, became a police officer, then I had my own company, and then I walked in the door of a building and dropping my father's picture off at the Table Fort Rodman Military Museum. I always usually say I got shanghaied because I started working 3 hours a week and now I'm president of the museum. If you want to see something that represents the veterans, please stop by the Military Museum. We're talking about the veterans and what they did. We have the histories. It's not about tanks and guns at the museum, it's about the veterans who served. If you have a picture, I don't care what it looks like. Mine standing in the doorway in Germany, being Joe Cool with my MP gear on in the museum. One of the other guys is him sitting in his bunker in Vietnam. Bring a picture in, 5x7. We'll put it up for you. It's not about me, it's about the veterans. I'd like to do one of these here at the museum. We have speakers, we have everything to do with the veterans. So please stop by. It's free. And even during the summertime, it's free parking if you go into the museum. You don't have to pay the good old city of New Bedford to park. So again, it's not really about me. Yes, I did my time. Did a bunch of crazy stuff. Some stuff I regret nowadays because of injuries, but it's about serving others. I come to these not that often. Again, I hopefully get some more in, but I think this is one of the most fantastic things out there because we try to tell the stories in the museum of the veterans. And I would like to thank everybody for showing up and coming here to let us know what you did. Yeah, I served. I served doing all kinds of crazy things and I didn't go anywhere. Spent 13 years in Germany. But I stood up and did. Like one person said that there's so much different places. Shoot, my son had spent 35 days in America until he was 6 years old. That was it. He was born in Landstuhl, Germany. Your families, the families of veterans, don't realize how much they go through. So, again, I want to make it quick. I know everybody's sitting there going, oh my God, somebody else. And just want to say thank you. Thanks to the Student Veterans of America. Thank Bristol Community College for putting this on. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Bill. We have time for about 2 more speakers. Come on up.
Hello, good morning everybody. I'm Staff Sergeant Escobar, Andres Escobar. I work out of the 102nd Intelligence Group with Master Sergeant Gendro here. Don't have anything really prepared, just got invited and I was like, why not get more involved with this stuff. One thing I did kind of want to touch on was kind of more speaking to maybe guard people and reservists. Something that I personally kind of feel and deal with is like this feeling of when you're out with veterans and you come to these events and you hear the stories that you guys have and that you guys go through, it's insane. And I know something that maybe guard people can struggle with is like, we feel like maybe we didn't do as much and we don't deserve to be called veterans and we don't deserve, the kind of the honor that people give you guys. But it wasn't until recently that I kind of realized that we do our things, and we should accept those thank yous from people, because I started my career as a medic. I learned how to fix people. That was my job, fix people. And I did that because my father, he kind of said, like, what are you going to do with your life? You know, and he kind of put it in the way of, like, pick something in your life that if a zombie apocalypse was going to break out tomorrow, why are people going to keep you around? Like, if you're going to work at McDonald's all your life, zombie apocalypse, you working at McDonald's isn't going to help you out. So I was like, like fixing people. If I know how to fix people in a zombie apocalypse, that's important. So I chose that. And thanks to choosing being a medic, I had the opportunity to end up being activated for COVID. So when COVID broke out, my unit, we were actually supposed to go to Japan for 2 weeks for a training out there, so I was super excited for that. Next thing you know, March 2020 is when like the whole world shuts down, and the unit calls and like, hey, guess what? You're not going to Japan. Instead, you're going to Holyoke, Massachusetts. And I'm like, sweet. And ironically, it actually ended up being the veterans home in Holyoke. So we actually got tasked to go over there and help the veterans over there at the soldiers' homes, because as we knew, like medical service, nurses, doctors, everybody's being spread super thin. People were even quitting because they were getting overworked, and it was tough, and it was a hard time for everybody. So we got tasked with just going over there, and wherever we can fit in, we're fitting in. So I was spending, I think it was like 2-3 months on orders, just helping veterans, people who were in the homes, and hearing all their stories and the things that they did. And it was truly an amazing moment, but also really sad and depressing, because there would be days where I come in and, I'm helping bring them their food, their medications, giving whatever I can, giving my attention. And, the next day I can walk in and I'm like, oh, where'd they go? And they're like, oh, he's gone. He succumbed to his illness, to COVID. And that happened a lot, all around the world. So that really sucked. But it made me realize, like, now reflecting upon it, like, I helped, like, I did my part. It may not have been serving in Vietnam or doing anything crazy like you guys have, but I did my own part here in my community, and sacrificed my own time and put my own health at risk, because when I was on those orders, I got really sick multiple times with COVID, even though we were given the proper PPE, protective equipment. We still all ended up getting sick, a bunch of us, and then we'd have our own little COVID parties, because only the sick people could hang out with sick people, so we would like hang out after work and we would drink together even though we're all sick. And on top of the fact of even COVID, like with the med group, ever since like the Boston bombing happened, specifically with us at the 102nd, now we're tasked where every year we're over there at the Boston Marathon. So you'll probably see me this year over there. If you guys go to the Boston Marathon, we'll be out there on standby, because ever since that bombing happened, that's been a mission that we're tasked with, where again, like us guard guys, we still raise our hand to run towards the fight and not away from it. So some of the younger airmen that I work with now, and they kind of think like, oh, like maybe what I'm doing isn't important, but it's like, hey, like a simple mission, like we're going to the Boston Marathon, like again, you raised your hand and we're standing there, where if another explosion happens or a firefight or whatever happens here, we raise our hand, we're running towards it, and we're still going to be helping our fellow community and stuff like that. So that's kind of just what I wanted to say real quick regarding that. And also wanted to extend like my thank you again to everybody else who has served before and the things you guys have done. I know that us younger guys, I'm 27, we aren't as involved in these things, and I really hope that's why I try to come out to these things as much as I can, because hopefully I can speak to like my peers and some of the guys I work with and try to encourage us more to be involved, because these things die out unless we keep supporting it. And it's really nice that after I've been attending these things, realizing how much of a tight community we all are together, and that we just have different experiences in life than most people do. Yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to go over today. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you, Andres. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak at this time? Come on up.
Hi everyone, my name is Josh Chamron. I'm a 22-year veteran of the Navy submarine service, retired as a Chief Petty Officer. I was born right up the road here in Brockton, so coming back to Massachusetts was quite a unexpected turn in my life. I looked at my career and I started in the late 90s, so 22 years, spanned 4 different decades, 2 centuries, 2 millenniums, 5 presidents. So saw a lot of different changes throughout my time, from a peacetime posture to then into a wartime posture, and then kind of a coasting posture. A lot of work in the submarine force is classified, so it's hard to talk about things because I can't. So always trying to find a way to talk around it always became a problem with people that weren't in the service, or even dealing with family members. Hey, what do you do? It was very hard to talk about a lot of times. We work in a steel tube, cut off from fresh air, daylights, and it gets very claustrophobic from time to time. Had all this stuff in my head as I'm sitting down there, and now it's all like kind of escaping. But a lot of things that I was listening to everyone talk about is their different experiences, and some talked about how maybe they felt a little less than, they weren't in combat, they weren't doing this or doing that. But then I started thinking back about how we all had our roles, and the roles to complete whatever mission was assigned to you individually, to the command as a whole, to the larger picture. It's like for a long time I always felt like my service was less than someone else's, because I was basically stuck in a steel tube, spying on other countries. No one really knew where we were or what we were doing. So it made it hard to feel like someone who was actually in actual combat, feel like we were on the same level. As time gone on, as I advanced in rank, every time I went back to a submarine, it was at a different role, a different position, more senior each time. And as I grew in seniority, all that responsibility, all that pressure from doing the job that you do started to weigh on me. And eventually I did get injured, and then I had a knee injury which lingered for a very long time. I wasn't able to get it taken care of, and then I started going to dark places. For like almost a year and a half, had a lot of mental health issues that I didn't address because of the nature of the military at the time, and having security clearances and all the other responsibilities. I never felt like it was I could share how I was feeling at that time. And during that time, it was a lot of dark thoughts. I would, driving home going from home to the base and stuff like that. I felt like, it'd be better off to drive off into a ditch or off a cliff. On the way on deployments, I would stand in the mirror with a razor blade in my hand, and just, someone would be like, "Hey, what's going on in there?" Look, kind of just snap you out of it. It was near a breaking point when I finally came back from deployment, and my wife's like, "Hey, I need to run to the store, grab some things." Like, "Let me come with you." And then so she sensed that something was off of me, and it was like in the parking lot of a Stop and Shop is where I finally had my big breakdown. Like, just crying, snot, everything. It just totally unloaded on her. And she had never seen that side of me before. It was a completely new and surreal experience for her and me. I mean, just being able to at least finally express to someone how I was feeling, what I was feeling. It was a big relief in that moment. But she, now my ex-wife, but in that moment she didn't understand how to handle, deal, or even comfort me because she had never experienced that with me. We hear about the mental health of service members all the time, making sure to get the help that they need. And I mean, I'm still struggling with it even to this day of what was going on back then and into my life today. But I mean, making progress and making sure that's, I don't me or anyone else comes another statistic. I did have a quite a good career, Navy, joined the Navy, see the world, but had a son. My son was born in London, which was quite a unexpected surprise, but we dealt with it. And then I've been stationed at bases all over the world, so it was like you always have your pluses, and then you also have your negatives. Some of the best people I met in my life were on my very first boat early in my career, and still talk to those guys to this day. So, I mean, we talk about it being a brotherhood, and meeting new people. I mean, this is the first time I've come to a town hall, so it's me finally kind of getting out and meeting more people, I guess you could say. So a little nervous, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josh, for your vulnerability. This concludes the speaking portion of our town hall. However, this is not the end of our conversation, it's only the beginning. Please take out your phones and open your cameras and scan the QR code on the screen and share your honest feedback before you leave. We're committed to continually improving how we support our veterans, so getting the feedback from you is super important when we do our future town halls. We have several upcoming events and we hope to see you again, so I ask that you stay connected. I'd like to thank my teammates from Bristol Community College Veterans Center of America for your support and assistance setting up the room. I'd like to thank the director of Bristol Community College Veterans Center, Denny Cosmo, for putting this event together. Thank you to our veterans for speaking, and thank you to everyone for listening. I also want to bring up Kevin Serpa, your Veteran Service Officer, to share a few words.
Before I forget, I would like to start off by saying thank you to students of Veterans of America at Bristol Community College, all our guest speakers, Christ Church for being here, American Legion, the VFW here in Swansea, and all you guests and family for being here, supporting our community in this event. Thank you. I do want to say a couple things as a veteran, right? The mission continues. In the film earlier that you've seen today, one of the individuals mentioned, I'd rather be there than back home. And I understand what that's like. When I came home, I wanted to do anything but be here. This ride that we're on doesn't stop back here. When you're on deployment, you're focused on your mission and what you gotta do, and it's easier. With that being said, there was no more deployments at that time and I couldn't go back. We learned something in the military in that shoot, move, and improvise, right? That's a saying that stuck with me forever. When you're here and you're going through hard times and you're sitting around, you gotta get up. You gotta tell yourself, get involved. Get involved is as easy as going down to the American Legion, the VFW, Christ Church, the first Saturday of every month for their breakfast. Talk to a veteran, right? Get involved with something. We need it or we are going to die, right? The veterans community needs engagement. Times are tough. They feel crazy at times when you're back here. You got political turmoil, people are fighting with each other, but we have one thing in common, we're all Americans, right? And together, we are strong. The mission continues. When you feel lost, get involved, get out, and do something. With that being said, thank you all. Thanks for being here. I would like to invite Denny Cosmo up to say a couple of closing remarks as well. Denny, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Jamie, for organizing this. I want to say thank you to Tabitha. So, Tabitha, you want to stand up? If we could all give a round of applause to Tabitha. Tabitha is finishing 29 years in the Air Force, and she's our SkillBridge intern this semester. She's phenomenal. She just went to Colorado Springs with us, and she's been an absolute treasure to have in the Veterans Center. So thank you, and good luck to your entire life after the military. So thank you. The other Bristol veterans, the Student Veterans of America chapter members that were here this morning helping set up, could you please stand up? If we can give them a round of applause for having set us up. I also want to recognize Ron Cabral, who was our recent graduate in May, Vietnam veteran and Bristol alumnus now. So thank you, Ron. So you heard a lot of amazing stories, right? There's humor, there's hardship, there's heartache, there's service above self, there's community. So this is like a real experience. We've all known the plastic kind of surface level experiences, but having this level of vulnerability, hearing other people speak about their service and what it meant to them is really important. And I think a number of you hit on that today, is the human experience of storytelling. So this is just the start of the conversation. This isn't the entire conversation. So hopefully you heard yourself, your story, and someone else's story, and that leads to a deeper connection. So please, we had some people leave, but stick around and continue the conversation. Now that you understand someone a little deeper, keep that conversation, ask questions, and learn about other people. And there's plenty of food left, so eat all the food, drink all the coffee, stay around. Don't be in a rush to leave, and keep this community alive. This is the start of a conversation. It's not the entire conversation. And with that, right outside, there's a historic cemetery that I walked up by, and there's veterans that lived, loved, and laughed that are buried right outside, right across the street here from King Philip's War. And that's Swansea, Massachusetts has a deep-rooted history in American history, American military history. So King Philip's War was in 1675, so before America was America, before we had the Revolutionary War, we had veterans, citizens like you and me serving to protect our community, and they're very right out there, and they had stories too, and they shared stories, just like centuries from now, people are going to be telling your stories about what you did in American history. And with that, it's been mentioned a couple of times, this is a community. So for one way or another, we're kind of in the Swansea area. So American Legion Post is meets the third Monday of every month, I think 16 March. So hopefully I see some of you veterans at the American Legion on 16 March. There's meal, there's storytelling, and keep this community alive and help it grow. And with that, I just want to say thank you for being here. Stick around, please eat some food, and I appreciate and love all of you. Thank you.